What's up, guys? Week 95, and I have some things to talk about first. I did actually have strep throat, so last week I did go to urgent care the next day, and I had strep throat, so it was pretty bad. But I'm all good now, well, at least recovering. So I have some things to talk about before I get into the reviews, kind of some semi-reviews. You know how I do in the beginning, sometimes the opening, I'll talk about titles I watch, but little quickies that most of my reviews aren't quick enough as it is. They are pretty fast. But I guess let's talk about Music Machine is a website I did an interview with. I guess they have a Patreon and they put the interview up there first, but eventually it will be live everywhere. There'll be a link below for the Patreon, and there'll also be a link below for the actual interview if it actually is live by then. If not, it'll just be the Patreon. I'm not sure when it's going live. But I did get to see a couple movies that I just want to kind of brush up on with and talk about a little bit with you guys. I watched King Cohen on Shudder, and it's a documentary about Larry Cohen, great director. Really enjoyed it, really fun. Had interviews with like Joe Dante, John Landis, Martin Scorsese, and Fred Williamson, some people that work with him. Love the ones with Fred Williamson because basically everything they say is just they're just kind of fighting. Not fighting, but they're talking to each other. Like they're like, that didn't happen. That's not how it went. They're like saying the opposite. And Fred Williamson is just like, he's not a bullshitter. So it's just funny. It's enjoyable. Love Larry Cohen. Love the documentary. If you guys love filmmaking or just his films, it's well worth watching. It's great. And I also got a chance to see Powerbomb, which had its Toledo premiere Friday. These are shot a week ahead of time. So in this movie, I know the filmmakers. I'm friends with the directors and some of the people that are in the movie. So it's very hard to be unbiased with this kind of thing, or it's weird. Like if you know the filmmakers behind, are you harder on them? Are you softer on them? You don't really know, so you really don't give a fair assessment of these movies. But I will say that I'm proud that they made it, and it's a wrestling thriller kind of deal where a wrestling fan kidnaps a wrestler and he through his fandom. It's very strange in that kind of aspect with the idea of having like a wrestler thriller kind of movie. But I must say that my friend stars in it, Wes Allen, and he turns in one of my favorite indie performances I've ever seen. He's got this great energy. He's equal parts hilarious and equal parts scary, and it mixes. Becomes a believable portrait of a disturbed person. It's also cool because they talk about a little bit about mental health in there, and even the healthcare system and stuff like that in fandom. They address these kind of things, and it's a pretty interesting independent movie, and I think people should look into it. There'll be a link below to the Facebook and everything, which should have like screenings and whatnot. There's no Blu-ray or DVD out yet, but keep an eye out for Powerbomb by B.J. Colangelo and Zach Showalter. Watcher. I always mispronounce his name. I'm terrible about even pronouncing my own friends' names. That's just terrible. But these guys are from Ohio. They're from Cleveland, and they do a bunch of stuff. So good guys, and they made a bunch of shorts as well, which I'll probably link some below. I think they're on Vimeo for free. But I just wanted to talk about those few things. But let's hop into the first review from Severn Films. This is one that, an Australian one. I wouldn't call it Ausploitation, really. But it's an Australian movie I heard about for years. Next of Kin from 1982. Pretty much all I knew about this movie was that it was good. People were like, it's a good movie, it's interesting, and it's got a lot of things going for it. And I kind of fell into the hype machine. Like, it was super hype for me. So when I put this in, I'm watching it. I hadn't heard a lot. It's a slow burn, and it builds, and it builds, and it has payoff. And that's exactly, it is a slow burn, and it does have payoff. Like, to say it's not a well-constructed movie or a well-made movie would be completely inaccurate. I must admit, the first watch, I was a tad bit let down, just because of the hype. And sometimes you follow into it. You try not to, but you do. But regardless, I thought it was a well-made movie and definitely worth watching. But it follows the story of it has that typical gothic setup, a very kind of almost generic gothic setup where somebody's, and there's nothing wrong with that setup, it always works. Well, somebody loses a family member and they have to go back, they inherit a house. But this house, this woman loses her mom, and she inherits this kind of giant mansion which has been turned into an old folks home. So she has to kind of settle in and start taking over these duties that her mother had. There's a helper there, and nothing really seems right. And you start to realize that her mother might not have all been there, and there's some sort of maybe a possible mental illness through line through their family bloodline. Next of Kin, that's kind of title place in there. and just some creepy things are happening with the older people. She befriends this older guy, and he has a stroke at one point due to some very, very creepy, haunting scene involving somebody drowning in a bathtub, and which is one of the creepiest looking scenes in the movie, and visually very terrifying. But he starts to maybe tell her some things, and he starts to discover some things in here. John Jarrett's in it. Isn't he in every Australian movie that us Americans get over here? He seems to be in all of it. He's the star of Wolf Creek. He's in Django Unchained. He's in a bunch of Australian movies I've seen. He's very young in this one, and he's pretty good in it. The lead gives a pretty solid performance. This is definitely, like I said, a slow burn, but it has some haunting imagery. I knew a lot of people were comparing it to like Italian horror movies and whatnot. But this director, if you listen to it, he wasn't a huge fan of horror films. He based a lot of this on, a couple Euro horror films that he really liked and stuff like that. And you can, when you watch the special features, you see some of that stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, I see where they're putting that in there and this in there. The movie does have a nice feat of filmmaking at the very end in a kind of a unique oneer, and it does set up all its foreshadows a lot of the things that are going to happen in the movie, just not even subtly, and it just comes in and plays them pretty well. Like I said, it does everything right. It sets its things up. It has creepy moments, and there's a burst of violence in there that are surprisingly graphic, and I did cringe at a couple scenes involving an eye through a keyhole. I was like, ooh, that's pretty crazy. But I think it's well worth checking out. The music's really good. The music is one of the things that helps incorporate this weird feel to the whole entire movie. And the setting's great as well. Like people had pointed out before, nothing creepier than a lot of weird old people. Some are kind of delusional. At times there's a little comedy element to it too, where this one old lady gets a headset, and later on she gets like a Walkman, and she's like, I have no idea what this is, just in the background, and then it's like maybe even some like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of comedy in there, and then later you hear her like listening to it or walking with somebody trying to talk to her, and she's like, I can't, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty unique. There's some decent special features on here. There's an introduction by the woman who wrote The House of Psychotic Women, which is a book I wanted to check out. And she talks about this one for about 5 minutes, and it's pretty interesting. Talking about the mental illness and the supernatural ability in the movies, and you don't know really what's going on, and that's how a lot of these movies thrive on psychological kind of horror films. And there's also 2 audio commentaries on there, which is great, and extended interviews from Not Quite Hollywood are also included on the disc. It looks pretty good, and it sounds really good. Like I said, I was impressed with the soundtrack in here, and I do like the small town feel. There's a decent amount of characters in here that are interesting, even if they're only in it briefly, which I do kind of like that kind of stuff, especially the guy who runs the small little diner. His voice is very memorable, and all his scenes are good. But there's really good scene with sugar cubes as well, but worth checking out for sure. I don't think I'm as high on it as a lot of people, but there's no doubt I can see its quality, and I would recommend it for that.
To my daughter, Linda Mary Stevens, I leave my entire inheritance, all goods, chattels, and worldly possessions that comprise the estate of Montclair.
The real location of Montclair is a mansion called Overnewton Castle in Keeler, Victoria, just 15 miles northwest of Melbourne.
I was interested in less the gore and blood and more the what you didn't see and what you didn't know that was going on, and more into fear, I guess.
Okay, this next one, bear with me because the titles are all very similar, and it's not going to be easy to recall all of them all at the same time, the titles when they come to me, but it is the Sister Street Fighter collection. Believe it or not, I've never seen the original Street Fighter movies with Sonny Chiba, and this is kind of like a one-off series. The actress starred in one of the Street Fighter movies briefly, I believe the first one, and they made an entire series starring her. There are 4 films in this series. This is again an Arrow release, sorry for not saying that, but yeah, the Sister Street Fighter movies. The first one was made in 1974, and the other ones were shortly made right after. Sister Street Fighter. Okay, we have this, I can't remember her actual style of martial arts, but we have this martial artist who's like, has this unique style of 2 kind of mixed together. And goes undercover to kind of like find her brother who's been kidnapped in this drug smuggling kind of ring, and her brother is being held against his will by this giant organization of baddies, and it's led by this guy who has a fascination with other martial artists. So he has all these people from all around the world that know these different styles of martial artists, and it's so awesome when it introduces all the bad guys. Even for a split second, it'll show them doing something, and it will just freeze frame, or it will just say underneath them for a second. I don't even know if it freeze frames, but it feels like it, and it says their name and their martial artists and their expertise, and it's just like, this is so freaking awesome. Definitely something that Tarantino would later kind of steal for freely from these movies. But regardless, she kind of infiltrates and she ends up fighting all these people. And it actually ends up being one of the most entertaining movies with some amazing fight scenes, very fun, unlimited amounts of great bad guys. There's tons of bad guys in there, all introduced. They all come into the end fight scene. It's a big fight scene. Sonny Chiba's in it himself, not as the same character from the Street Fighter movies, but he comes in and he does some great fight scenes. And there's like a dojo in here. I don't know if it's called a dojo in this kind of, but there's a whole school of martial artists that the bad guys and stuff are up at odds against. So it's just a great movie, and you wouldn't think that people are going to be killed in this, but no, it's very violent, and they somehow incorporate this sleaze and like some nudity in here, which makes it like almost kind of an exploitation movie at times. But I just can't recommend this first movie enough. It is very entertaining if you like karate and kung fu movies. It's just does some crazy dangerous things too, and it's just fun and non-stop like entertainment and action. As for the second one, it is called Sister Street Fighter Hanging by a Thread, I believe. And this one is almost as good as the first one. It's not quite as good. It's basically the same movie, let's be honest. Sonny Chiba's not in this. This time, Sister Street Fighter goes in looking for a missing woman, and she unveils a prostitution ring, but it's more of a diamond smuggling ring. And these bad guys are literally... I can't make this stuff up. They are smuggling diamonds in prostitutes' butts and cutting them out, and yeah, it's more the same. We got a bunch of bad guys, played by a lot of the same actors we've already seen, all different styles of martial artists. She fights the bad guys. She does lots of good things. I believe there's a fight scene in the rain in this one that's just pretty dangerous looking, and I can't imagine all the stuff they had to go through for it. But this also has an undercover cop kind of deal going on with another character that kind of fills the role of Sonny Chiba. It's not as good as the original, but it's almost as good as the original. Still highly recommended. Still vastly entertaining as well. And again, more nudity than I expected in these movies. I didn't really expect anything, but there is a very big chunk of sleaze in these. I'm not making out like Sleaze Fest USA or anything, but there is some sleazy stuff in here, which was completely, I didn't think any stuff. I just think this is going to be a straight karate movie. Okay, the third Street Fighter movie is called, what is it, The Return of Sister Street Fighter. And this one is more of the same, but instead we have a bad guy who is smuggling these chemicals that end up turning into gold. I don't know what's going on with that. It's alchemy at its finest. But this one, for me, it stands out because there's a brilliant scene where he's like, I'm going to make all my henchmen fight for the top 4 spots. So there's this tournament. In the middle of this movie, there's this crazy tournament where all these different martial arts guys fight. And it literally like reminds me of something like Street Fighter. The video game Street Fighter, not Street Fighter or Sister Street Fighter. It reminds me of Street Fighter. The video game would definitely steal freely from this because we have all these styles competing. And crazy weapons. All these movies do have these wild weapons that they had to make the bad guys exciting by having these ridiculous weapons and the sound effects. So it's just awesome. I don't really have as much to talk about this one because I think it's a little weaker than the first two. Like the formula, kind of like even when something like they keep doing the formulas over and over again, it starts to lose its steam a little bit and it becomes a little too repetitive. Although the first two work perfectly, this one works a little less. But the fourth one, I believe it's called Sister Street Fighter 5th Level Fight or some crazy title like that. The fourth one is completely different. In this one, it's the same actress, a couple of the same actresses, but she doesn't play the same character. Because if you find out some information about her in the third one where her parents or her mother is dead, and you're like, oh. And then the fourth one, it opens with her parents, and I'm like, what's going on? And then you realize it's not her, and I was like, oh. But then it has a character from the last movie played by the same, it's a seemingly the same character with the same name and actress, and I'm like, what? But it's not the same character, just the same actress with the same name from the third one. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's going on. But this one has a completely different feel to it. We again have more of a police procedural going on where these bad guys are smuggling drugs. This is kind of a thing going on in these movies, but it's a little bit different because it's slower, and we have this relationship between her, the main character, Sister Street Fighter's best friend, and her brother. And we have this flashback of the past that sees what they went through, and we have some really tragic death scenes in here. We have a really good, I believe it is a oneer in a hallway where he's fighting a bunch of these guys, and he's getting backed up against a wall. A really great fight scene there. And I think I prefer this one over the third one, which is probably not a popular thing to say, but there's also some crazy fight scene going on because the bad guys are using a movie studio as a front, which is a thing I've seen before in these movies. I think they do that in the clones of Bruce Lee too. But these karate kung fu movies, they do that kind of a thing. So we have this weird, giant, elaborate fight scene where the two heroes end up fighting a bunch of people dressed in movie outfits and props, the whole cast and crew of a movie and all the other bad guys. It's a really fun scene. It's really amazing. It takes place in a warehouse. It has some laughs and it has some good stuff going on. But this one is a bit different and it has more of a dramatic flair to it, and I really enjoyed it as well. There's not as many features on this disc as one would like. I believe there's only a couple interviews. I think it was the first special feature on the disc, to be honest. Yeah, interviews with Sonny Chiba and the director and screenwriter. That I remember watching those on the first disc and being pleasantly surprised with those. Not like pleasantly. I was happy with the special features, but the other movies don't have any features on them. But it is 4 movies. 3 of them are on the second disc, and I watched these in my strep throat like a sick moment. Just 3 of them back to back, and I was like, these are all great. I just watched all 3 of them in the same day. The second 3. But regardless, these are vastly entertaining. I can't recommend these enough. If you like these kind of films, then this is highly recommended. I did buy the Street Fighter set too, so I can't wait for that to come so I can check out Sonny Chiba whooping some ass, because I've seen some of his movies and he's great. But these are highly recommended, never boring, always entertaining. The Sister Street Fighter collection. Great stuff.
You can tell Cocky we're ready. His aunt made them for the boy. You see?
Okay, the next one is from Arrow Video 2, and has been previously released by Blue Underground, but this is the Arrow release, Strip Nude for Your Killer. Yeah, this one I have seen before. It's directed by Andrea Bianchi, the director of Burial Ground, Night of Terror, and I love Burial Ground. And it is one of the sleazy, craziest movies. And I'm going to say Strip Nude for Your Killer has got to be one of the raunchiest, sleaziest, gialli I've ever seen. It's almost like it's the Island of Death of giallo, where it's like, how many fucking perversions can we cram in this movie? Let's get them all in here. We have this group of models and photographers that start to get picked off, and you don't really know why. And that's the mystery of the movie. You start to figure out when there's more people being picked off who possibly is doing the killings. This movie ridiculous. It has like incest stuff in it towards the end of the movie. It has a joke about anal sex that's really tasteless at the end of the movie. It has abortion. It has so many things that are crammed into this movie. The lead of the movie, the lead character, the actor, he is a horrible piece of shit. Like, you hate him. Like, at one point, the Edwidge Fenwick, who stars in this, who's a bunch of Sergio Martino, Gialli, and pretty much the face of Giallo. She suggests that maybe we go to the cops, and the lead guy grabs her by the throat and starts strangling her, and I'm sitting here thinking, are you kidding me right now? Like, this movie takes a whole new level of these Italian, chauvinistic stuff in here. Like all those Italian movies, like every woman gets slapped in them. It's just like, you're like, yep, that's just a chauvinistic Italian giallo movie. But this one takes it that extra step. It's like, well, we gotta outdo it. Like everything about it is just over the top, like so over the top and sleazy. It almost is. It's so like losing its like classiness that these giallo usually have, but. It's such a perfect setting for a giallo because we have them in this like fashion like models taking pit, and it's just like they're so high class, and it's perfect for that giallo setting. The kills aren't particularly graphic, but there is a graphic nature to them where the bodies are mutilated. That's pretty nasty. And there's this character in this movie who's also a piece of crap. In fact, the people that run the fashion place, the photographers run the whole company, are a married couple. One played by this heavyset guy who actually plays the lawyer in Midnight Express, who's just a complete pervert, and his wife, who's also a complete pervert, and these two are always trying to get the models to do things for them. And there's the heavyset guy has some sexual dysfunctions, and there's a blow-up doll involved. But regardless, this movie is the ultimate sleaze giallo. And I can't really recommend it enough if you like Italian films or if you like Burial Ground. But yeah, it does. This one I remember was loaded with features. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. There's a commentary on here. There's tons of stuff in here. The one, I love the Kat Ellinger. She talks about Edwidge Fenwick's career in giallo and sex comedy. That is by far my favorite special feature on here. Some of the other ones are new interviews with a bunch of the people that worked on the movies, and they do two different versions of the opening. Some there's a blue tint to it, some there's not. But I'm not sure if I dug into. I shouldn't say that's my favorite special feature in there. I did listen to some of the commentary, and I'm not sure if I actually got to the other interviews on here, to be honest. But I made sure I listened to the Kat Ellinger because she's one of my favorites, and she did a great job with talking about Edwidge Fenwick's career in sex comedy and giallo. But regardless, it looks really good. I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to double dip for the Blue Underground, but some people might not have this one yet. But if you don't, I would recommend getting the Arrow edition. And I really would recommend checking this one out, especially if you haven't seen this one. And it's kind of strange to see Edwidge Fenwick in a giallo that's not by Martino or produced by Luciano Martino, Sergio's brother. But regardless, Strip Nude for Your Killer. The title fits. It's sleazy. It fits the movie. Good stuff. Good stuff.
A shadow in the night. Footsteps on the stairs. The sound of death.
Carl, I'm afraid. What am I supposed to do?
Magda, get that film. It's a special infrared film. Get it and develop it. Hurry.
murder strikes out of the void. No one knows why. A mystery within a mystery.
Carlo, the murderer could be anyone.
Yeah. Why not? Why not me, for instance?
Water. Almost as if for a sacred rite.
Oh, he killed Doris. Then Doris must have been killed by the same madman.
Blood. To slake the thirst of a human beast. There's very little time to love. It must be done hurriedly, desperately. Because for him, for her, for anyone, an atrocious death may be approaching. Slowly, fearfully, the minutes pass by, and one feels the breath of death on the back of one's neck.
He gave us a slip.
An anguished shiver chills the blood. It's the moment of terror.
Okay, the next one is from Arrow Academy, and I really hadn't heard much about this movie, but when they released it, I was like, that looks interesting, especially because it started Alec Guinness, and yeah, it is The Prisoner. Okay, yeah. I put this in, and I didn't really know what to expect. I read the back, and I was like, okay, we're going to get into this. And I started watching, and I was like, oh, this is instantly intriguing, instantly shot well. It looks spectacular in black and white. Alex Guinness plays this priest, and he's arrested by the government. And it takes place in this government where you really don't know what country it is, but it's definitely corrupt. And they're worried. This is post, World War II, post-Nazi fascism and stuff like that, even though this government kind of feels fascist in itself. And they arrest Alec Guinness. He's this high-level religious figure, and they tell him it's for treason, and they want him to admit to all these things. And his old friend is the one interrogating him, Jack Hawkins. These guys were both in Bridge over River Kwai later on, so that's kind of interesting as well. This is, I think, the first movie they worked together on. So the whole movie is this kind of psychological torture that Alec Guinness is going through, and this breakdown of his character by his old friend. And you see this kind of corrupt nature of the government, and all these people are holding out for the priest to see why he's been arrested, and he's not going to say anything wrong. And it's really kind of heartbreaking and grueling, and you start to learn more about these characters as it progresses. And this movie is driven by these two great performances. A lot of the movie takes place just in a couple rooms with these guys talking, and Alex Guinness is like locked in this area for a long time, and his interactions even with the prison guard are great. The prison guard's really good, and Alec Guinness at the end, I don't want to spoil too much, but the end conversation he has with the prison guard is really as good and very well done. And the way this movie ends is unique as well. And if you listen to the special features on here, I can't think of the guy's name who does it, but he has a video appreciation, and he talks a lot about it. And he just doesn't do one of these things where he talks about the history of like, oh, when they did this and this, but he gets into it, and he and just like even listening to him talk about the movie made me like it even more. Although I really thought it was a great movie. It's one of these deals where it's just I can't see anybody disliking it. And it's kind of based on a true incident, which is scary in itself, but you can see this kind of corrupt government being worried that the religious figure is going to lead people to a different way. And it drives me crazy. They're talking about in the features that all these film festivals wouldn't carry because all these countries would ban it. They're like, well, this is pro-communist. This is anti-communist. This is politically dangerous, is what Cannes Film Festival called and refused to carry it. And I don't. And when it comes to that kind of thing, for me, like that Cannes Film Festival said, it's politically dangerous. Like that makes me never want to ever like go to Cannes Film Festival. I know it's 1955, and you're like, well, we don't want to get in trouble. It's like you shouldn't worry about that when it comes to film. I mean, if you're running a film festival and somebody brings in a movie that you don't agree with its political affiliation, do you think it's a well-made movie that deserves to be seen? I mean, even if you don't agree with what it's saying, like, I would play it. Even if I was like, oh man, this movie, I completely disagree with what they're saying, but I think that there is some craft to it, I would play the movie. But I know maybe they were worried about getting in trouble, and they're looking at it as a job. And I don't think film should be looked at as a job. But that's me. And, I'm not always right. That's just an opinion, obviously. But just like that Cannes Film Festival said it was politically dangerous, it's just like, screw off, dude. Stop it. You're supposed to be a film festival. You're supposed to be celebrating all these different films. I know it's a different time back then, but it's just so funny that the movie was trying to point out this corruption and this like kind of worrying about like stuff like that, about people being like kind of controlled by certain organizations blackmailing or framing other organizations so they can control power. And the Cannes like, no, this is dangerous. We don't want to touch it. It's just like, yeah, you guys. It's what happened in the movie is happening to it at the same time. But just a really good movie, really well shot, 2 great performances, and you feel sorry for Alec Guinness. And you get in his head and you see some dark things. And Jack Hawkins also, I don't want to keep talking about it, he does a great performance, a multi-layered performance too. In the ending, they talk about it doesn't really feel like you expect it to go that way, and their characters are complex, and what happened is complex as well. But good stuff.
I'm sorry about all that nonsense we've had to put you through.
I imagine this is more awkward for you than it is for me.
Well, hardly that, I suppose.
Oh, I don't know. In spite of your political creed, it's you who are the gentleman. No titles nowadays, of course, but yours was a noble line.
You are a prince of the church.
And you to interrogate me.
Times have changed. You were a hero to me in the resistance, as you were to all of us. Tell me, do you ever miss those days?
At least one was on the same side as all one's fellow countrymen.
I make no distinction between my fellow men. Their service demands everything, and I warn you, permits everything.
Is there any particular plot or counter-revolution you hope to unmask?
Not unless you know of one.
You believe us harmless, yet require us discredited. And the point of arresting me?
A cigarette.
No, thank you. If I may smoke my own. While they last.
Oh, come now. Drugged cigarettes already? You see, you represent a religion which provides an organization outside the state. In your pulpit, you're more dangerous than a politician. With your war record, you're a national monument. You are outside the party, and that monument must be destroyed, defaced. You see? I show you my hand from the start.
Do you want to see mine? I am difficult to trap and impossible to persuade. I am tenacious, wary, and proud.
Proud?
Quite sinfully. Of my record in dealings with your predecessors, the Gestapo. I am tolerably inured to physical pain.
Okay, guys, this one is even more culturally important and well made, and just such an important movie in the history of the world, and it is Tango and Cash. Okay, that was obviously a joke, but yeah, I love those like 3-disc sets where you get 3 Blu-rays in the set. That's a Stallone collection, but I thought I saw Tango and Cash years ago, but I don't think I ever did. Yeah, Tango and Cash brings 2 of the great action stars together, Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell in the late 80s. Yeah, this movie is nonsense. Kurt Russell and Stallone are the best cops in their city, but they don't really know each other, and they're at like kind of competing odds. They both get framed for something when they go to meet the same sting. They get framed for a murder, and they end up going to prison. They're not going to sit for that. These guys decided to break out the prison and you know, try to figure out and stop the criminal that put them there. This movie is over the top. It is absolutely ridiculous. It is a freaking cartoon, and the cast in this is amazing. Jack Palance is the bad guy, and he's overdoing it to ridiculous levels. He's obsessed with mazes. He's like so over the top. He could have been a Batman villain. I mean, he was in Batman, but he could have also been like a crazy Batman villain, like one of those off the wall kind of characters that is like, you know, like the Mad Hatter. He's like, I'm the puzzle maker, Jack Palance. And it's like, you know how Jack Palance, when he gets into it, he's always like, he like has this weird breathing, like he just seems so intense. Yeah, and he's great in this. He has some henchmen in here. One's played by James Wong, who's in a bunch of stuff. He's in a China Girl, and what is he? He's in Big Trouble in Little China, also with Kurt Russell. But yeah, so and then we have just some Robert Dazar, Brian James doing a weird accent. Michael Jeter pops up in this movie. I just was like, why are all these people in this movie? The heavyset guy from Total Recall and Arachnophobia and Killer Fish. I was just amazed that all these people were in this. What's a crazy time. But Tango and Cash is a blast. The action is over the top. The bickering between Stallone and Kurt Russell is on point. I love Kurt Russell. I don't think there's that many people better than Kurt Russell, to be honest. And Stallone's really fun in this. He plays the more uptight, worried about his clothes deal. And Kurt Russell's, you know, the crazy, almost mullet kind of, I guess you'd say, Riggs kind of character. But I love their interactions, especially when they're in prison and they're like... like the shower scene's really fun, and Robert Dazar is just crazy. But they play all the nonsense, and there's just giant stunts. It's just a blast, and there's just tons of explosions. It's just so silly, so stupid, and the most over-the-top buddy cop movie I've ever seen. And I wish there was a sequel. I wish this was a franchise, Tango and Cash, but just a lot of fun. I don't think many people would not enjoy this unless you don't have a soul or a sense of humor. But it's highly recommended.
I'll tell you one thing. Whoever set us up is really connected.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Relax. Soak. And don't flatter yourself.
Meet Ray Tango. He likes money.
Easy come, easy go.
But doesn't bother with cash. Meet Gabe Cash. He won't dance around trouble and doesn't mind stepping on toes.
I hate you karate guys.
Two of LA's top rival cops are having a tough time staying in rhythm.
You know me, huh?
Yeah, I hear you're the second best cop in LA.
That's funny. I hear the same thing about you.
But they're going to have to work together, even if it kills them.
Like now!
We'll take it.
No, that's one of a kind.
We won't put a scratch on it.
Did you sleep with my sister?
I was so drunk, I don't remember, okay?
Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Tango and Cash.
Okay, guys, the next one is The Hart-Break Killer, which is Indiegogo is still going on right now if you're interested, so the link will be below. But The Hart-Break Killer is directed by Sean Donahue. He's worked on a bunch of movies, Die Delta Pi, the Escort Service movies, and it stars Eight, the Chosen One, who starred in the First American Guinea Pig and a bunch of other stuff. The third Escort Service, Eight, the Chosen One, was a famous YouTuber, reviewer kind of guy, and I know the guy. He's a good guy. So, and I know Sean Donahue. They're cool people. So, a little maybe it's hard to be on biased here or non-biased, whatever it is, But regardless, The Hart-Break Killer. This movie is coming out shortly. It is short. It is like an hour. It's like 68 minutes long. So that's always good to keep an independent movie short, if you ask me. we have this loser character, Robert Hart, played by Ape the Chosen One, who has some psychological problems. He can't get in a relationship. He feels rejected. He's always made fun of. He's just one of these kind of pathetic loser people that just doesn't know how to form human relationships. He ends up having some sort of psychological breakdown, and every time he has to go to this weird place where he meets an alter ego, also played by Ape the Chosen One, who's a little different. He's more aggressive, looks like his normal self, and he basically, maybe his id or his and he's telling him what to do and giving him advice and also making fun of him and provoking him and stuff like that. This movie feels like it's building up to one giant explosion, to be honest. There's some comedy elements in here just because Ape's character Hart is so weird and so cringy that you can't help but laugh at him sometimes. Like, he's one of these guys, he has obviously a wig, and you never know if it's supposed to be a wig or it's just supposed to be not a wig. It's really weird. But it's just, you never know, like, when this guy is like it's gonna be funny or serious, because he's such a weird character and he just spazzes out and he's bizarre, just strange. But it's really nice to see Ape get to play these dual roles, and especially when he plays the more villainous inside his head role, it just feels more natural for him, I think. But the other one is something completely different, and it's also interesting to see at the same time. The music I thought was pretty strong in this I thought it was a little, I think it's the guy who usually does Sean Donahue's scores, who does the Death Court Service, so it's pretty solid music, to be honest, and he does Tim Ritter stuff as well, so that was pretty good. And no, he does he do? Yeah, I think he does Tim Ritter stuff. He used to do Tim Ritter stuff. But, and also, I thought the camera work was better than usual. And, Sean Donahue makes a lot of low-budget movies, so it was nice. I didn't see, a lot of times in independent movies, you'll hear, a lot of muffled sound or out-of-focus camera shots. I didn't see it here. Maybe a couple muffled sounds, just a little bit, but not much, and a restaurant scene. But, the camera work was solid, and there's some lighting and stuff. It feels like a step up for him. The plot of the movie, I don't want to give away a twist or anything that happens in the movie, but it definitely feels like it belongs in an episode of Tales from the Crypt or The Outer Limits. It has that kind of feel to it, and it probably could have been more best fitting in a 30 to 45 minute kind of style movie, and that's where it kind of goes. I enjoyed it. It's pretty good, and it works well for what it is. I have no complaints really about it. It's just a movie that I think needed some more to it or less to it. It should be an hour and a half, or it should be 45 minutes. It's right in a weird spot where I want more or I want less, if that makes any sense to somebody. I feel like it either could have been a 40-minute short that felt like a great episode of Tales from the Crypt, or a good episode of Tales from the Crypt, or an hour and a half thing where we go deeper into this world. But I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like the Sleazebox guys or Sean Donahue's movies. It's not as graphically sexual or anything like that, or as full of nudity as a lot of these other ones. But it is, it does feel like a Donahue movie, but it's not as sleazy as some of that other stuff. But check it out, the trailer, see if you're interested.
You're just not my type.
I'd like to kill him!
Okay, guys, the next one is a Patreon pick from Jonathan Wilhelm. And last month he picked Sorority House Massacre 2, so he picks the sequel, Hard to Die. Directed by Jim Wynorski, guys. Yeah, Hard to Die. Yes! This is a direct sequel to Sorority House Massacre, and if you guys part 2, only part 2. If you guys know anything about Sorority House Massacre Part 2, it's not related to Sorority House Massacre 1. It uses flashbacks from Slumber Party Massacre, and Hard to Die does the same thing. This time we have 5 women that are to clean up this, this kind of skyscraper area, go through these files and do inventory, clean it up. And there's a janitor there played by Orville Ketchum, the same character from Sorority House Massacre 2. He's the janitor, and he gives them the creeps, and he has a history. It's the same history as before about the house and everything. So that all happens. So he has this reputation, and all the girls are creeped out by him, but they, of course, get him to tell the flashback story, which is, again, flashback to Slumber Party Massacre. Jim Wynorski, you knew what he was doing. He thought it was hilarious. So what happens is they start cleaning. They get this wrong package that was supposed to go to Forey Ackerman, who is the guy behind, Famous Monsters magazine. He's in this. And they open it, and it somehow brings the soul of, what was the guy's name? The character's name from the other movies, into this giant skyscraper, and you don't know where the soul jumped into. So we have the women getting picked off. Some of the same women, not playing the same characters in here. I think Melissa Moore and the lead, a couple of the leads were from the last one as well, are in this. And it's the same lead. Somehow they managed to squeeze in the nudity. All 5 women end up getting naked, and it's in a skyscraper, so it's even more ridiculous why they do it. And the other one, they were in their own sororities, so they're like, let's get in underwear. And this one, they're like, we got to take a shower after that work. And there's a shower in the boss's chamber. So guess what? They get in the shower, and then they work at a lingerie place. So there's all this lingerie. Let's just put on the lingerie. It's so forced at the time, but you know what you're getting yourself into, and Jim Wynorski plays with it. It's not like he's like, oh, I'm such a clever writer. He's just like, we got to get them in lingerie now, and it's just like, and we know what he's doing, and if you've seen the last movie, you know exactly. It's like part of the comedy, part of like the satire in it, to be honest. I like the setting. It's a ridiculous movie. It's not gratuitously gory. Orville Ketchum is hilarious, as always, the character. I love him. He keeps getting the crap bit kicked out of him, and he refuses to die. And the ending of this movie, I wish there was another sequel on top of this, because it's very funny how it ends. There's 2 cops in here, of course, the cops from last time, and they don't like Orville. They're always on his case. But it's pretty much the same movie, except now it's in a skyscraper. It has the same girls, a lot of them. They're all getting naked. They're all fighting, and it's just the same. Fighting the killer off. It's just ridiculous. It's silly. It's a rehash of the last one. There's some squibs in this one. Some girls shooting machine guns in lingerie, which should make many fans pleased. It's fun. It's worth checking out. And I'm hoping that Scream Factory does put out Sorority House Massacre Part 2 and Hard to Die in a double feature, because I would be buying them, because they're a lot of fun. And maybe get a Jim Wynorski commentary on there. But very silly, very self-aware of what it's doing, and you guys should know what it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun.
A madman has sealed off a Los Angeles high-rise.
Who's there? Hey, the phone's dead.
Now, 5 young women are joining forces and fighting for their lives.
Look, it's 3 against 1. The odds are in our favor. Maybe I can increase those odds. Eat like you son of a bitch!
Hard to Die.
Okay, guys, the next one is the VHS Voyage, and this is Dead Girls. This is a bootleg. This junk. Okay, let's get into the pick. I'm just kidding. No. I never, this is junk. I know it's unconstructive, but I had seen this movie years ago, and when I re-put it in, I was like, maybe I hadn't seen this one. And then a while ago, I was like, I did see this one. I just completely forgot everything for good reason. Dead Girls is bad. It follows the story of a band called the Dead Girls, and the lead keeps having these nightmares about her sister, killing herself with her friends. She's left her small town, and what happens is her sister does attempt to kill herself, and so she goes back to her small town. Her sister's in some sort of coma. Her aunt and uncle, who are taking care of them, who raised them as kids, are really mad at them. but mad at her because of it. And her bandmates are like, let's go, yada yada yada. We're on tour. Their managers pushing them. So they decide. She says, screw this. They're gonna go on vacation. So they take their what I thought was her sister that was in a coma. I thought she was in a coma. They take her on this trip in the middle of nowhere, and with the band and like a guy to help them and a nurse, and that's pretty much the plot of the movie. But it's just so stupid and so ridiculous on top of that. And that small town has the religious like factor in there, and you know that one of those people's a creep right off the bat. But and like at one point she showed in the coma, and like, we think it's self-induced. And then like the next scene, she's like in a wheelchair getting wheeled out, and she's ready to go, and she's like, "Will I be okay?" And it's just like, I thought she was in a coma. Isn't there going to be a scene where she wakes up from the coma and everybody's like, "Oh, she's from a coma"? It's just, it's like completely nonsense that they would let her go on the trip in the first place. But I'm not going to complain, okay? Well, I am complaining. So I am complaining. I whatever. But it's just nonsense. So they go out to this place, and there's a killer that starts to pick everybody off by using their music lyrics, which I really like. That's a great idea. Like, they'll axe them or stuff like that, or they'll strangle them, and they use the lyrics, and they leave a piece of the lyrics around. That's really clever. That's really fun. The killer looks really cheap. He's like a half Giallo, half Misfits cover. He's got like the skeleton mask that like was on to be a bunch of Misfits covers, and then he's like wearing a trench coat like he's in a Giallo. It just looks really silly. It kind of cracks me up. In a movie that I liked, I think that outfit would just bring a smile to my face. But the outfit, it's funny. There's just lots of like ridiculous things. The movie's like an hour and 46 minutes long, and it's like one of these deals where like the quality's not great, and I'm like, is this shot on video? I don't think it's shot on video. It could be. Don't care enough to look into it, but it's probably not. Maybe edited on tape. Probably is more like it. Shot on 16, edited on tape. I don't know. Somebody tell me what Dead Girls was shot on. But regardless, there's a scene in this movie where somebody drowns, and they call the cop to show up. And of course the cop's an asshole. He's like, "I don't like you kids and your stupid music, yada, yada, yada." It's just like that satanic panic bullshit. And everybody's an asshole in this movie. Everybody ends up being some sort of criminal or a killer. Or there's this weirdo that's just he's just there, and he's like, "Oh, he's so-and-so. He takes care of the ground. That's Elmo." And he's just like, your typical, "Hey, I'm a slow guy in overalls and a flannel" type of deal. And you're like, "Oh, is he the killer? I don't know." And then at one point in the movie, he's not the killer. He's not the killer. He can't be that. The red herring's not going to be the killer. And there's like 12 red herrings, but he's not the killer. And sorry for the spoiler. Sorry. But anyways, you're like, "Oh, he's going to try to save her." And then he's like, "I love you." And then he starts getting all pervy on her. And you're like, after all this, he ends up being a pervert too. And then a couple of the band members have a switcheroo on there, and they turn out to be assholes. It's like, why is everybody an asshole in this movie? And then, of course, there's the killer. And then on top of that, there's some more people being assholes. And then you thought for a while this was going to be a Patrick-like situation with their daughter. With their sister, kind of killing people through her, maybe her like in a coma. But none of this really stuff comes to fruition. The kills aren't great. There's a couple graphic kills in here. There's a cool character who's like this, she's like kind of a military obsessed, like one of the girls of the band. She has all these weapons. You're like, yeah, let's keep her in this movie. Let's watch her. She's in like 10% of the movie, and then when she obviously gets killed, and it sucks because she's the only character that should survive. But no good characters, not that many great kills, and for some reason there's no nudity, even though that would suggest there should be. And one of these points there's a scene of nudity, but like it feels like one of these deals where like they got on set and either the girl was like, "I'm not doing the nudity anymore," they like threw it on her last minute, like, "Come on, do the nudity," and she's like, "I'll do it for 30 seconds screen time only." So it's like exactly that much screen time. It should have been sleazier because it's not good enough to like stand on its like script. As bad as that sounds, it's not a good movie. It's bad. It's painful. It's an hour and 46 minutes long. Really, guys? You couldn't cut it? You couldn't trim the fat? But Dead Girls. I mean, I have no problem with an hour and 46 minute movie that's good. But this is not. And this is not. And like when I'm talking about independent movies like Hart-Break Killer, 68 minutes. Powerbomb, 80 minutes. That's what you do. You don't make an hour and 46 minute movie that costs $10. Just don't do it. You don't do it. But I have seen a couple that are the exception to the rule. Dead Girls is not.
All the suicide and death, it was just a gimmick, something to get attention. No one was supposed to take it seriously.
Does anybody here have a medical degree? Any medical training at all? Nursing, physical therapy, pharmaceuticals? But you know she was dead, and you called me in immediately, right? And now maybe she's dead, maybe she isn't, but she's definitely missing, right? So I'm supposed to call out the troops and launch a major search effort, correct? I don't know what kind of town you think this is, but our police force consists of me and a deputy. Our town paper is a 4-page bi-weekly, and there's no local TV. So what do you expect to get out of this? Nothing you do up here is going to make the network news. Even if some hotshot reporter did happen by, the only thing they'll find is me filing this whole mess away in our crank call folder. You'll get no publicity at our expense.
Sheriff, this is not a publicity gimmick. Susie is dead, and someone's taken her body.
Who? Why? When? Who had the opportunity? And why on earth would anybody want to hide this?
What are you saying?
Look, we didn't exactly keep tabs on each other, Dick Tracy. We stayed in our rooms till we heard you pull up.
Well, now you can go back to your own rooms and listen to me pull out.
I was never certain about the afterlife. But now I know there's a hell, so bastards like you can burn forever!
Okay, the pick a movie was Clint Eisler, and he picked Sonatine by Takashi Kitano. So yeah, I got to watch another Kitano movie. I bought this on Vudu because the Blu-ray from Japan's expensive and the DVD's out of print, I think. So I was like, I'll just buy the HD on Vudu and check it out. This is Kitano. It had also done Violent Cop, which I reviewed, and he stars in this one. This is another Yakuza movie, but this is unlike any Yakuza movie I've seen. It's not like the 70s Yakuza movies, which is like violence, and then newspaper clipping and violence and stuff like that. Those are good movies. Those are cool movies, but this is completely unique and different. This was made in the 90s, and I was very impressed with it. We have a group of the kind of head boss sends Kitano and his boys to this new area to kind of basically keep this other gang in line and make peace because they're having some trouble. But that's after sitting there for a while, he realizes that something's kind of weird, and there's a whole scene where they kind of rest in this area, this beach house, for a long period of time. But that's pretty much the plot of the movie until you find out exactly what's going on, and you can't trust the Yakuza like you can't trust the Mafia or any other gang, really. But that's kind of what happens, and I don't want to spoil too much. But what this movie has going for it, it has a surreal quality, I guess, to it. And Kitano is like this character that's almost kind of self-destructive, but he's very fun, and he's very likable and lighthearted in his other things. It's just like 1 second he's so violent and abrasive, and then another second he's joking and playful. But there's a couple scenes in this movie, and I noticed it happening a couple times. This is like a comedy at times. There's like really funny moments. Like a violent moment happens, and then something else will follow up, and it's very funny, or something funny happens, and something violent happens. It's like funny, violent, and you never know when the violence is going to hit because it's so damn funny, or so it's got you completely distracted. But there's a scene in this movie where these two Yakuza, they're supposed to be on the same side, get in a fight, and one stabs him, and then later on, they're in the bus. They're taking a bus to the town because there's so many of them to go there. And the other guy, he's like, there is ice cream if anybody wants it. And it's just like, can you imagine all these Yakuzas just eating ice cream, and everybody's sitting there silent, like, and the one guy's eating ice cream later, and he's like, you want some? And the guy's like, you stabbed me in the stomach and it still hurts. or something like that. And there's like great moments. And there's these two where they're two talking, and I don't want to spoil too much, but a bomb goes off, and there's a sudden shootout, which comes out of nowhere, which you just like completely don't see it, the way it's shot, the way it creeps up on you. Now it's just like, whoa. It happens a couple times like that. And I became really attached to the characters in the movie. And it's really smart that at times it's really not all this nonstop violence or action or anything. There's this slowdown where they're on this beach and there's this woman that comes and Kitano helps her and they kind of have a relationship. And there's this like bromance between these two young Yakuza, and they almost become like best friends, and they're just always around each other, always goofing and whatnot. And it's a really great scene, and great moments in there. There's lots of great moments in there, and the relationships like forming with each other is just beautiful in a lot of ways. And then of course, that sudden violence will sneak up on you again, and the double crossing, and it's just sad in a lot of ways. And there's some foreshadowing and whatnot, which I liked. But there's this moment that had me laughing out loud where they're playing this kind of Rock'em Sock'em Robot style game where they make these little paper fighters and they send them in a ring, and then they hit on the sides like this, and the ring will move, and whoever falls down loses. And Katano's guy loses, and then he's like, wait, this one's my favorite, and he puts like a little one on there that's like half the size of the other one, and he gives him a name and everything, and then like they start doing it, and without like 2 seconds later he falls over, and they all just start laughing. And I was just like, that is wonderful. It's so wonderful, and it's like shows the bonding between these characters, that not everybody's just this big bad Yakuza. They have like the real people, and when they die it becomes sad, and that's a great way to do it. It's just like a drama with great moments of character development and very like intense shootouts that are pretty quick but also feel realistic. Just great. Can't recommend it enough. Great performance by Kitano. Again, unlike his other performances. Just good stuff, and loved it.
沖縄の中松さんとこが穴組とドンパチ始めちゃったらしいんだよ。でどうしても助けてくれって親分に泣きが入ってさ。まあうちとしても人出さなきゃいけなくてさ。村川、お前何人か連れて行ってくんないか。
北海道の時はうちの若い人3人も死んでるしな。あんまり乗らねえな。
そのおかげで今の島もらったんじゃないか。だいぶ羽振りいいらしいしな。それぐらいの恩返ししなきゃ。
どうしても親分の方から助けが欲しいって言われて来たんですけど。
お前んとこの親分がどうしてもってよこしたんだ。大したことじゃないんだ。
あの前で東京に電話できます。
なんで
しばらくここで様子を見ると
おおじゃんけんぽん。お
狙いよな。噛んでなんだぞ。危ねえじゃねえかよバカ野郎。去年取んなかったかおい。
バシ捕まえて締め上げるしかない。あの時引きに行けなくなってました。
ヤクザやめたくなったな。
結構荒っぽいことやってきましたからね。
なんかもう疲れたよ。
金持ってると嫌になっちゃうんじゃないですか。
Okay, guys, let's hop into the pick a movie drawing. I don't know, I just got the urge to check that. Let's see who's going to win this one. Ray Strop. So let me know what you want me to check out. I can't remember who won the last time, or if they got to me or not. But there we go. Okay, let's hop into, if I can move all this junk. I think we're going to hop into the questions really quick. American Horror Gory. What's your favorite Italian zombie movie? I've been loving those recently. Any suggestions? I ask you because I know you know your stuff, Park. Thanks. You know what? There's not as many as one would think in that genre, but I love almost all of them, so I would recommend checking out them all. But the number one, it's obvious, and I'm going to give you a couple because it's so obvious. I'm sure you've seen it. Zombie by Lucio Fulci is the masterpiece. It stands as not only one of the best Italian horror films, but one of the best zombie films and best horror films ever made. It's great. Love it. Adventure movie, zombie movie, action movie, gold. Besides Zombie, there's some really fun ones. Hell of the Living Dead. If you don't mind your movies being completely shameless in the ripoffs, I would recommend it. It's Dawn of the Dead, Contamination music. It steals Dawn of the Dead's Contamination music, steals the SWAT guys from Dawn of the Dead. It incorporates the jungle adventure, nature. It has like nature documentary footage. So it has so many things going on for it. It's very gory. It's very over the top. It's very stupid. It's very bad probably, but I love it. Then we have Zombie 3, which is an action, very fun, a very fun movie. Zombie 4, which is absolutely ridiculous. Nightmare City, which some people are like, that's not a zombie movie, that's an infection movie. Whatever, I know it's not, but it counts. Nightmare City, love it. Umberto Lenzi, fast-paced action movie where the zombies or the infected look like guys with meatballs for heads, and they run around with weapons. It's nonstop. It is one of the most entertaining Italian horror films you'll ever see. We have Burial Ground, which is great in its nightmare logic and its weird kind of just setting and everything about it. It's equal parts stupid, cheesy, sleazy, and scary. Cheesy, sleazy, and scary is what I'd call it. I love it. It's gory, it's nasty, and it makes no goddamn sense half the time. I think I hit all the big ones. Those are the ones that I would highly recommend checking out. Zombie 3, Zombie 4, Nightmare City, Hell of the Living Dead, and Burial Ground. They're all winners. They're all fun. Is there any other ones out there besides like the supernatural zombie movies? And if you haven't seen those, like Beyond and City of the Living Dead, you got to see those too, those Fulci ones, because Beyond is amazing. It's not just a zombie movie, it's a Gates of Hell movie, so everything crazy happens. You have tarantulas and all dogs turning on people, and then City of the Living Dead's the same kind of deal. Both those are highly recommended as well. I just can't pick a couple because they're all good, if that makes any sense. Literally, like every Italian zombie movie is pretty gold. All those ones I named, and House by the Cemetery even has like a zombie kind of in it. So I'd recommend all those. But if you only got one, Zombie. Probably go with Zombie if you haven't seen that one. I mean, there's not as many as I'd like there to be. I wish that genre never stopped. But yeah. Then we have Nick Mua. Did you enjoy Django Unchained? What do you make of the controversy surrounding the picture? I love the movie. It's an exploitation movie, a modern exploitation movie with like A-list performances in there. Jamie Foxx, Samuel Jackson, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, all did great in it. I love seeing the actors pop up, who is it? James Russo pops up in there, and Tom Savini, and James Remar, bunch of people like that popping up. I love the movie. I think it's great. I think it's it even has Don Stroud in it. So yeah, vastly entertaining movie. Violence is just insane and over the top. The controversy, I don't know. I'm not really one to speak on that. I love film. It's just a movie at the end of the day for me. So, and I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion on the controversy. I know what I like, and I love the hell out of it. And just because someone else doesn't like it or is offended by it doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it. How do you feel about younger directors trying to revive old movie genres? I really did enjoy David Robert Mitchum's Under the Silver Lake mystery meets film noir in contemporary setting. I do like that they're trying to revive some of these genres. I'm not too familiar with that many new movies, so I don't know what's being revived and what's not being revived and stuff like that. I don't watch that many new films. I watch them mostly keep in like the genre movies, like horror and stuff like that, those kind of genres. But I really wish some people would revive the frickin' Western. And I'm not talking these cheap... You can't make a Western cheap. I mean, you can, but you can't make it dirt cheap. You need the widescreen lenses. You need the great, beautiful landscape for me, to be honest. So, like, I wish they would revive the Western. And then, who's your favorite Belgium actor? That's a question that I'm not too familiar with Belgium actors, and I was looking at like the top 100, and I was like, I don't know any of these people. So it's like I don't really know. Like my favorite Belgium actors would be like, who's the guy? Is Man Bites Dog's a Belgian movie? It's probably the lead Man Bites Dog. Remy something. I can't think of his name, but I think that's a Belgian movie, and I think he was pretty good in that. James Grimmer, do you prefer to watch Italian films subbed or dubbed? What informs your decision? Have you ever come across a bad dub? I usually, this is funny, I was just talking about this. My Italian movies, I always watch dubbed. Because all the actors in the movie are speaking in their native language on set. So most of the actors that I'm going to know if they're speaking English, like a Jack Palance is in it or somebody like that, or they're going to be speaking English on the movie, or John Saxton. So I'm like, and a lot of times they dub their own voices, so I'm like, why would I watch it in Italian? It makes no sense. So I can, you know what I mean? So I can watch John Saxton speak Italian and look bad. I'd rather see John Saxton look better. It depends the actors in the movie, but I'll always watch an Italian movie or a Spanish movie in English. Nowadays, though, a new one I would watch in their language. And I always watch Asian movies subbed because the dubbing in those looks really bad. So I always watch those subbed. I have come across a bad dub. A really, truly bad dub is Django. The original Django, I watched that subbed because the dubbing's terrible. The guy who dubbed Franco Nero is terrible. So, yeah. So I basically watch all my Italian movies dubbed. Peter Engelin, question, name your 3 favorite Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill movies. To be brutally honest, I don't think Terrence Hill and Bud Spencer ever, got the popularity they got overseas that they got here. And I'm not sure how many of their movies were really widely released here, or for the very most re-released here. So I'm not that familiar with them. I don't even know if I've seen any from them. I know Terrence Hill's in a couple ones, like My Name is Nobody, that I have, but I don't. Give me some recommendations. Which one should I watch? Because that's a subgenre of a subgenre that I'm really weak on. They're not as popular here. I do think I've seen Bud Spencer is in what is that? A Reason to Live, A Reason to Die, isn't he? I've seen him in that, and he's pretty good in that. And yeah, with Telly Savalas. But it's just those duo guys are not as popular around here, and I didn't know them growing up at all. Answers from the last week I asked, what is your favorite Italian subgenre of film? Jonathan William, definitely the Italian zombie subgenre is my favorite. So many solid and fun movies from Fulci, Mattei, Lenzi. And, he asked, what is your favorite Italian zombie outside Fulci zombie? Because, come on, that would be too easy. He asked me that, too. So, oops, I'll answer that here. I know it's not technically in the right spot. But, ooh, man, I can't just pick one. It's either Hell of the Living Dead, Nightmare City, or Burial Ground. Or Zombie 3. I can't pick one. I love them all. Peek and Boo. Answer to the question of the week. Cannibal/exploitation and or giallo. But if I have to choose one, cannibal it is. Too bad there weren't that many of them. Yet, you're right. That's the same thing with the zombies. Oh, I also forgot to mention Zombie Holocaust. Check that one out too. Also a zombie and a cannibal one. Viper Rose 1978. In terms of my favorite subgenre of Italian film, I'd have to say giallo. Tenebrae is probably my favorite movie of all time. However, close second would be Nightmare City, which I don't even think you can really categorize. It's just too all over the place. Yeah, I love both of those. Tenebrae is also my favorite, probably my favorite giallo. Or second favorite after Don't Torture a Duckling. That's my favorite Argento, though. I love it. Paul Weichel. My favorite subgenre of Italian films would have to be zombie. In my opinion, zombies have been overused in recent years, but when I was younger, there was nothing like a good Italian zombie movie. The Italians were able to create that type of atmosphere that couldn't be duplicated anywhere else in the world. I also enjoy a good sword and sandal movie. I prefer when there are some monsters involved in the story. Feel better. Thank you. Ben Miller. Favorite subgenre of Italian films? I'd say a tie between zombies and supernatural mythical horror. Zombies encompassing even Contamination Plague, Zombies, City of the Living Dead, Burial Ground. As for supernatural stuff like Inferno, The Beyond, Demons, and The Church. I think Fulci is a great way to go into these because he covers many genres, even really like The Devil's Honey. I lastly want to give an honorable mention to Italian post-apocalyptic action films like Escape from the Bronx in 2019 after the fall of New York. Even if several of them are Mad Max rip-offs of Mad Max, they are still really fun, gory, and don't get enough love. If Escape from the Bronx isn't apocalyptic enough, then The New Barbarians or Endgame, that sort of thing. Nick Mua. I do enjoy the occasional spaghetti western, especially when wrath and vengeance are included in the plot. Django is a classic. These films were a big influence on Tarantino Tarantino's work, as we all know. James Grimmer. I would have to say that I thoroughly enjoy gialli, as well as spaghetti western. Both subgenres are engaging for me to watch, and I can't say I've ever watched a bad giallo or spaghetti western. You can't go wrong with spending a lazy afternoon with either one. Peter Engeland. Favorite subgenre of Italian films? 1. Euro westerns. 2. Giallo. 3. Poliziotteschi. And I guess I'm going to go to the question of the week, which is kind of a statement that someone made that I want to kind of elaborate on and ask you guys a question or two. Brian Nielsen asked, I myself have been losing interest in movies over the past few years. As far as horror goes, there's a massive glut of shit out there, and I don't have the time or inclination to sift through it all. Also, quite simply, I think my age is making me a bit closed-minded. Have you guys ever lost interest in horror movies? I know I did for a while at times. And what is the reason for it? Is it too many bad independent movies? Is it too many bad Hollywood movies? Is it too much of the same thing? Is it just seeing too much of the same type of genre and wanting to like kind of liven it up with other things? All right, the question really is, have you guys ever lost interest in horror? And what was the reason? Okay, guys, I think that's everything. Let's hop into the update. Okay, guys, let's hop into the update. Let's start this out with the Planet of the Apes Legacy Collection. Believe it or not, I've never seen a Planet of the Apes movie. I don't know why. I saw the Tim Burton one, okay? And you guys could see why I never wanted to watch another one. But, yeah, this is a 5-disc set and includes Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and Battle for the Planet of the Apes. These were like $20, Blu-ray set, Amazon, couldn't pass it up. Look forward to watching these. I think I'll actually like them. It's just I never had a chance. Okay, let's hop into some more Blu-rays. And we got this from Dark Force, Copkillers, along with Project Kill. Yeah, this is the 5th release of Dark Force. Yeah, not checked these out, never seen it. Looks like it has a new HD transfer. I had the old DVD of this one, and I've never seen Project Kill either. So I guess, yeah, Dark Force. You guys know them. But then we have the Backlot Murders, which is another Dark Force release. I don't know. I grabbed this because it was cheap. This is number 4. Corey Haim's in this. I'd never even heard of this movie, to be honest, before this. And like everybody had before. I was like, what's going on? I don't know what this is. It happens rarely with horror movies, to be honest. Like, you know, previous horror movies from like even the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And when I haven't heard of it, I'm just kind of like thrown for a loop. I'm like, what? But it happens. It happens to everybody. It didn't look particularly great, but I figured I'd grab it. Then we have Primal Scream, also from Dark Force. An extraterrestrial energy source. A deadly cover-up. The future of mankind hangs in the balance. Not seen this one, but it looks ridiculous. What is that? Is that guy in a raincoat? What's going on? But, yeah, I've not seen this. It looks weird. It looks fun, kind of. So, yeah. And then we have one from Code Red. Screams of a Winter Night. Lots of controversy hiding behind this release. Yeah, I guess this has 2 versions of the movie. I've never seen it. It's an anthology. It's a Bigfoot movie. I don't know. I heard it's kind of dull, but I'm interested. I've been interested in checking this one out forever. You got to pull teeth to get a copy, though. And then we have Steel Arena from Dark Force. Is this a Mark Lester flick? Never seen it. Looks like an exploitation one. Is it? Yep, Mark Lester. Love Mark Lester. Class of 1984, class of 1999, Commando, Firestarter, Armed and Dangerous. It's got a long list of movies that are really fun. So yeah, I want to check this one out as well. Steel Arena. Then we got Blind Date from Nico Makaraskis. Not seen this. Has Joseph Bottoms, who I reviewed a movie last week. I forgot Joseph Bottoms existed, and then all of a sudden, 2 Joseph Bottoms movies I'm talking about back to back. But brother of Sam and Tim Bottoms. But yeah, the ultimate high-tech thriller. This looked kind of interesting, and I like Nico Makaraskis movies. This is a Scorpion release, Kino Scorpion release, so yeah. And then we have Never Too Young to Die. That last one, Blind Date, and this one I got during the Target sale. But I heard this movie's nonsense. John Stamos, Vanity, Gene Simmons, Shout Factory. I heard this movie's crazy and weird, so I grabbed it. But that's it for the update. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Back to the video. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, you guys have a good one.